Warning: sensitive images.
Vegan opposition, barbarous party.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visite suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Műsoraink sok nyelvet tartalmaznak. Kérjük, tekintse meg itt suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Almost all of the meat that we eat comes from animals who suffer either a little or a lot. And Tsar Ba'alei Chaim, not causing pain to another living creature, is a central principle of the Jewish tradition.
Jewish Veg, shining a light on veganism in the Jewish faith, part 2 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
Здравствуйте, жизнерадостные зрители means hello cheerful viewers in Russian.
I'm Evgenia. The people of Tatarstan welcome your presence and pray that you are always loved and surrounded by heavenly light. Loving viewers, welcome to our show today.
In the last episode, we were introduced to Mr. Jeffrey Spitz-Cohen, the Executive Director of Jewish Veg, a charitable organization embracing the core teachings of the Torah in modern society.
The Torah, along with all main scriptures, embrace compassion as a foundational tenet to be expressed in one's life and to treat others as oneself would like to be treated. Based on the understanding that God knows that embracing peace will bring about a loving and harmonious world, Jewish Veg has information on its website explaining why we should embrace a vegan diet for the environment, for health, and for compassion. In the Torah, there is a verse where Noah was supposedly given permission to eat meat, but this sentence has been taken out of context. Jeffrey enlightens us with the full version on this subject.
And of course, the book of Genesis really is, it's a story. For the first 1,000 years of that story, the vegan prescription was in effect. It wasn't until the flood that anything different was said to people other than you should be consuming plants and only plants. So when you think about it, why did the flood occur? According to the biblical story, it's because human beings had sunk to such a low spiritual level that God felt compelled to wipe out human beings, except for Noah and his family. So within that context, the permission to eat meat was granted, but it certainly wasn't any type of reward for good behavior. It was a concession, a reluctantly granted concession to human beings. When human beings were at their lowest spiritual state. So we weren't supposed to remain in that low spiritual state. We were supposed to elevate to what God intended for humanity. So the permission to eat meat was never supposed to be a permanent concession. There's much more I could say about this particular story in the Bible, but I'll just say two more things. The first is that it's immediately accompanied by a curse. The curse is that the animals who were created according to the biblical story to be our friends, these animals will now fear and dread you. This is what it says in the Bible in Genesis 9. The animals who were created to be our companions will fear and dread you. The second thing is, in the same chapter of Genesis, it's repeated not once, but 5 times that the covenant between God and people also includes the animals. The animals are included in the divine covenant. And the fact that this is mentioned 5 times, it's obviously supposed to get our attention. That's why it's repeated so much. So you can see the way that concession that allowed us to eat meat is contextualized. It really is not what God intended for human beings.
The wise teachings of the Bible have always been set as a guideline to protect humankind and the planet we live on.
Ignoring these principles results in retributions that show us why these laws were put into place. The history of pandemics that have plagued the earth have a chilling common denominator, one that is immediately linked to the raising of livestock.
Let's just look at the facts. And we launched as an organization a campaign called Toward a Pandemic-Free World. And the Toward a Pandemic-Free World, which you can access at pandemic-free.org, which has lots of information about how these pandemics start. And as you were alluding to, it wasn't just COVID-19, even AIDS. We forget about this. Even the AIDS virus, HIV, entered humanity because someone ate meat. In this case, it was a chimpanzee. That's how the virus initially got into the human population. So COVID-19 is not much different. We know that it started at a wild animal market in China. We know that that influenza, the flu, every type of flu came from birds, from keeping birds treating birds as poultry, as a food source. So there's no question, if we're going to move towards a pandemic-free world, we need to change our relationship to animals and stop eating them.
Conscious viewers, let's take a moment to thank the many animal sanctuaries
that take in victims of livestock raising and give them a second lease on life.
As life was intended in the first place, full of love, acceptance, and plenty of sunshine. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television.
Vegan, relatives of heavens.
Welcome back, virtuous viewers, as we continue to find out more about Jewish Veg, a support platform and information hub for the true teachings of the Torah, the Jewish Bible.
Mr. Jeffrey Spitz Cohen, the executive director of Jewish Veg, sheds light on the way to align our actions with the Torah's teachings and the many rabbis who support the highest truth.
Almost all of the meat that we eat comes from animals who suffer either a little or a lot. And Tsar Ba'alei Chaim, not causing pain to another living creature, is a central principle of the Jewish tradition. And we violate it every time we eat something that we know was factory farmed, was debeaked, declawed, was treated cruelly.
And if we're ingesting that suffering, that pain, that horror, that what I've eaten, which becomes me, who I am, how can I possibly be at peace with myself?
Mr. Cohen's heartfelt love for the truth and compassion touches people, allowing them to see what they know deep down but are disconnected from in the physical plane.
I'm sure many of your viewers are already vegan, but when you're talking to people who are not yet vegan, this is what I encourage people to do. You don't need to be Jewish, you don't need to be anything to use this approach, which is, please keep in mind, you do not need to change people's minds. You do not need them to change their beliefs because, at least in the United States, and I think this is true in most countries, the vast majority of people are opposed to cruelty to animals. So you should tell people upfront, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to show you how you can align what you already think with what you're doing. And I mean this sincerely because people do not need to live with this cognitive dissonance. They can easily align what they believe with what they're doing. And by approaching it in this way, people are much less defensive because, let's face it, it's difficult to change people's minds. People do not like to change their minds. I think, and this is how Jewish Veg approaches our advocacy, I think with this approach, it goes much better. We can be much, much more effective.
Information on Jewish Veg can be found at its website jewishveg.org, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well.
There are profound rabbinic statements as well as information on vegan alternatives for all the traditional Passover meals and any occasion one may be hosting, including regular family meals.
Mr. Cohen was also very appreciative of Supreme Master Ching Hai's inspired vegan restaurants, which are located worldwide for all to experience wholesome plant-based food at an affordable price.
I encourage people as soon as the pandemic allows to go to loving restaurants, because another great advocacy tool for our movement is delicious food. So at every loving restaurant I've been to, the food has been terrific. It's been great to take non-vegans there and show them you can eat the same food, but it can be vegan and you're not missing anything.
For more information on Jewish Veg, please visit jewishveg.org.
Heavenly viewers, we thank you for your loving attention today for our show.
Knowing that exemplary role models like Jewish Veg and Jeffrey exist in today's society warms our hearts. Coming up next is Satan's Co-Investment, Part 3 of 3 on Between Master and Disciples, right after noteworthy news. May we all endeavor to follow a noble vegan path, to reach enlightenment smoothly and quickly under the guide of an enlightened master.
Vegan side effect: your indigestion will pack and leave.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/VEG.